Welcome back, everybody, to another Grow Support Conversation. My name is Neil, and today I'm joined by Andre Linde to talk about knowledge gaps and knowledge sharing cross-functionally with other teams and how it can really benefit and create stronger bonds within your organization. So, Andre, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, everyone. As Neil said, I'm Andre Linde, a lifer in support, I guess you could say. Over 15 years in support, small break of teaching English out in Asia, which was awesome, and about 4 years in leadership. But honestly, just like I think a lot of people know, just once you're in support, you kind of stick to it. It's the whole idea of just sharing knowledge and talking with people is what keeps me coming back for it.
I think the community within support and customer roles is really, really strong. I think it's I love that you put yourself as a lifer in support. I think it's a fun term.
Yeah.
We are going to talk about knowledge sharing and knowledge gaps, which is
Awesome.
find always a tough one to break the barrier around in a lot of companies, from my experience. And I'm curious to start things off with how you feel about knowledge management in general in terms of sharing knowledge and kind of keeping people aware of what's going on.
Well, honestly, I think everyone in support does a horrible job of knowledge management. I mean, to be honest, you have all these knowledge documents that are basically just how-to manuals, which are great for companies if people are starting up. But then uh, the fact it's hard to find a good knowledge base though that has the situational questions. I think what I'm blanking on it. The is it KCS? Basically that I think is great, and I wish more people would embrace KCS because that really is the bridge between a manual and I just encountered this problem I've never seen before. Let me write an article so someone else can benefit from it. Because I think one of the biggest struggles that we have in support is that everyone has so much tribal knowledge, and they're like, okay, I'm going to keep this in my brain and I'm going to tell someone else. But then when they leave, they're like, oh, all that knowledge just went poof, it went away, right? So I think that is one of the hugest challenges in pretty much any company. I mean, I don't care if it's engineering, if it's product support. It's just there's so much tribal knowledge, and people don't do a good job of writing it down. But even if they do write it down, it's what you have: Google Docs, you have Zendesk, you have Confluence, you have all these different platforms where no one knows where to put like a central location for all this knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the. I have so many people that are like, yeah, it's in this doc here. I shared that with you, and always the access of like this doc there and that thing there, and it just living of, oh yeah, I just can help with this because I've done it for so long at this company, or I have that
Mhm.
knowledge built up, and I've stored it. The tribal knowledge goes. It creates such a knowledge debt when someone like that leaves. You lose out on everything that they essentially had. I, I'm curious because it sounds like it's a big problem, one of the biggest problems that growing companies have. How do you think, or what do you think is the first step to trying to solve that gap?
I mean, I think one of it is just creating good training. I think one of the things about good training is that training has to be a living document. It just can't be something that you create once and set it and forget it. Because I've been in so many companies where you go through training and you watch a video and you see a screenshot. Cool, where's this in the platform? Oh, that was deprecated 3 years ago. You're like, what? But I think the first thing is just creating good training, and that is constantly updating videos, constantly updating how-to manuals, both externally and internally. But then I also think one thing you have to do is you have to bring in different people to create these manuals. I mean, support has a really good idea of what's going on, but then you probably need docs to say, okay, here's the format we like using, here's the voice we want using. But then probably bring in either engineering or solutions architect that says, okay, here's the actual edge cases that we've seen. So you probably want to make some notes of that. I think those are some of the ways you can make training really effective. And then to go a step further is to have continuous training, right? And I think one of the ways that I've seen that happen is pretty much when, let's say you have a support team and then they are handing tickets off to the solutions architect team because they're like, this is too complicated for me. I don't know what's going on here. But really, when those tickets get thrown over the fence, maybe sometimes it's just they don't understand what they're doing or they don't know that knowledge. And so they're like, well, I don't know. So this seems vaguely technical. So I'm just going to throw it off to the technical team, right?
Mm.
What you need to do, though, what I've seen in those examples is the manager of support and the manager of the SAs need to come together and say, these are valid tickets to give to us. These are not valid tickets to give to us. Let's figure out which tickets are being thrown over the fence the most, and let's create some trainings around those. I think that right there is a great way to close that knowledge gap because it's knowledge sharing, it's cross functionality between teams, but then also the support team then gets to up their knowledge, which in part probably also helps clients because then you're not having this back and forth between handoffs, right? So I
Yeah.
think that is one of the key parts is just making sure that you have continuous training, but also you're bringing in different parties to make sure that training is effective.
Yeah, I think one of the best things that we've been able to do from my point of view is actually bring those leaderships together and say, hey, like, what are the actual things? Make those swim lanes really clear, and
Mm,
then try to empower reps and agents to be able to actually take on some more of those things, especially when it comes to the more investigative heavy types of tickets and things that they're passing over. I think context is the most important part of that.
yeah, absolutely agree.
uh, when you do come together and you see a lot of these edge case issues, you see all these tickets that are being thrown over, and you're starting to kind of bridge that gap in terms of knowledge, what are some tools or tactics that you've used in the past to try and make that work?
I think one thing you have to do is you have to get buy-in from everyone who's involved in this. And by that, when you get buy-in, is that you actually make people care about what's happening, right? So let's say that you are going to do one of these trainings, but then it's only the support manager and the team from another. Let's say just SA, since that's my example, they decide all the topics. Well, isn't that not fair? I mean, because this training is made for support, so the people that are receiving the training should have a voice and should have a say in what
Yeah,
they want to learn. So I think one of the best ways to get buy-in for this is you make a list and then let people vote on it. And then they say, because that's real buy-in. They're like, okay, here's the topics you want to learn about the most. And these are the ones you voted on. I think another great way to get buy-in is that then let's say someone has a topic they know a lot about, let them lead the next training session. And so then other people will get to see, oh, I get to do this myself. I'm just not a passive participant. I think that's a great way to also make people really vested and interested about the trainings and the learnings.
I think actually getting them hands-on and doing it, it also is a
Yeah,
really good way to ingrain the knowledge itself as well, right?
absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where once you build that muscle memory, it's you actually know, and you're not just being spoke to or spoke at, but it's a dialogue, right? Then because you're doing it and you're like, oh, I didn't catch how you did. Can you show me again? And that way you're getting that repetition in there as well.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that when you talk about now, we're talking about kind of the vocal sharing of knowledge and aspects. A lot of the times, we always say in support, you got to bring the data, you need to speak with the actual information and, back up the numbers and everything. But I see so often that people will bring all of those numbers and they will bring this kind of information and this knowledge and say, hey, this thing is here. Let's do something. Let's fix this. Let's bridge this gap. But it falls quite short a lot of the times, simply most likely because of delivery and a lot of options. But I'm curious, when you hear about things falling short because of that, what do you think people need to do to make sure it actually does get that buy-in and kind of bring those people to get engaged?
I think everyone everyone can pretty much agree that if I just say metrics are down by 50% and we need to increase it because we're seeing X, here or X there, people are gonna be like, okay, cool story, bro. Like I learned nothing from that. I mean, so you need to wrap it within a story because I mean there are numerous studies and numerous things that say people remember more details when they hear it in a story, when they have something that they can relate to. I mean, so think about it, if you like, let's say you go to your product team and you're like, okay, we've talked to 5 clients. They told us they love the product, but here's the areas they're struggling and they want to do these things, right? And then if they can get these things accomplished, here's how they feel that they could accomplish it better. So, create a narrative or create a situation where a person says, I want to do this, they do it, and then look how much better they're in the platform. And then you kind of throw some numbers here and there, but you have to basically create a narrative or create a story so then people can follow the beginning, middle, and end. And then, maybe you can wrap in some of those numbers in there. But then also people will remember later, oh yeah, hey, didn't Andre and Neil tell me about how these people were doing so much better in the platform because they were using these different products instead of just saying usage is down 50%, right? I think that's the best way to convey knowledge is through a story. Long-winded answer, but storytelling, dear friend.
Yeah, definitely, indeed. Like, if you want to start building these gaps of understanding or context within the org, which is what we're talking about, essentially, people actually having the information that they need to be successful, it is about bringing together the right people, having those cross-functional conversations, and it's not just, hey, here's this thing that's happening, but bringing the context, bringing those people together, and telling the actual story of why that is so important.
Absolutely agree. I think I don't know if you agree with this, but sometimes people say I suck at storytelling or I can't tell a story, and you're like, what did you just tell me about your weekend, or what did you say you want to do like in the future? Were you just telling me a story? Yes. Well, there you go. You're a
There you go.
storyteller.
You did it. There was this there's this video. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but the actor from Walking Dead, and he was curious about Dungeons and Dragons and being able to like play, and he was like, how do people get into it? It seems so complicated. There's so many things. And the lady that he's sitting across from just says, you want to play right now? Like, let's play. And then she starts telling the story about, you're walking down the dark road and all of a sudden you hear a noise. What do you do? And she just starts walking through this story and teaching him how to play. But he's just walking through a scenario, essentially. So like it really comes down to just being able to kind of, you have conversations every day. You tell people about what's going on all the time. You can very easily start to create scenarios and examples that bring to life the things that you're talking about.
That's a really great example, and it actually makes me think about my high school and college years when I used to play a lot of D&D. Alert! With my buddies, and I think honestly, I didn't even realize it, but probably doing that back then probably really helped me later on in my career because then I was so experienced, just making up stuff on the spot on my head with my friends. So that's a great example, honestly.
I'm gonna have to share the video because it needs a lot of context to what's actually going on there. So I'll share it. But yeah, I think it's great. You also brought up something that I'd love to ask you as well. That maybe this gave you a skill from your early days to now. Is there a particular thing that you've learned over the course of your career that you still stick to today?
There's something I learned very early on that I didn't know when I first started, and then I'm a staunch believer in it now, and that is saying no is okay. Because I remember when I first started, I always thought, oh, I can't tell the client no, because the client is always right. But then I remember I did a training, and the person said, should you never say no? And I'm like, of course. He's like, you're wrong. I'm like, what do you mean I'm wrong? He goes, it's okay to say no, but you didn't have to back it up. No, but I'm going to look for the answers. No, that's not the rate. That's not the rate you're going at, but here's how you should be doing it. And so that's something that I definitely preach loud these days is it's okay to say no, but never stop at no. And I think that's advice you can also take outside to support or outside your job, right? I think you can even do that in everyday life. I mean, if someone says, how do you do this? I don't know, but let's go look and see. Or do you know who did this? No, but let's look it up. I mean, I think that is probably the single best piece of advice I can give to anyone, pretty much in any line. It's okay to say no, but then find out why you had to say no.
Yeah, it brings it from just okay, conversation's done to hey, we can collaborate and work together to figure something out in that sense, where you actually do bring that in. I've had some conversations with some folks around this as well, around telling customers no in that sense, where sometimes it's really not a fit, and if it's not going to be the best value for them or the right solution for them, you should say no. It's better for them in the long run if you do. I think that's a wonderful learning, and it also sets yourself up for not necessarily, I want to say being a yes man, but like I used to just say yes to like everything. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Yeah, I could do that for you. Yeah, I could do that. But you overload yourself as well super fast. So being able to also leverage it to set boundaries and set yourself up for success. I think it's also what you say. You can use it for everything.
Absolutely.
Well, Andre, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your thoughts in the conversation and kind of bridging this gap towards storytelling and how people can start to, collaborate better with knowledge. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. Well, thanks for having me on, Neil. And I look forward to future episodes.